Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. The Minnesota Twins are looking forward to another great season in 2023, led by the return of All-Stars Carlos Correa and Brian Buxton. With the return of numerous players who were injured in 2022 and some new acquisitions, another division crown and a return to the World Series are in their sights. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Spirits was among the first 50 micro-distilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at our facility. If you're interested in visiting and learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check our website and plan a visit to tour our facility and taste our spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Welcome to Access to Democracy. I'm Bill Raker, your host for this edition of the program. We're excited to welcome back a returning guest who was on the program a few months ago, Dianne Miller, who's the City Administrator for Eagan. Dianne, welcome back to Access to Democracy.
Thank you, Bill.
You know, nice things have happened to you since you were on a little over a year ago. At that time, you were the Assistant City Manager for Eagan. And about a year ago, you were promoted to City Manager for Eagan. So congratulations for that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So your career with the city spans several years and lots of different roles. Would you tell us a little bit about what you did as you progressed through the ranks, so to speak, there at Eagan, and now you're the head honcho?
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I have been with the City of Eagan for almost 22 years now. In May, it will be 22 years. I was really fortunate to come right out of graduate school as an intern. I went to the University of Kansas, which has a strong program in city management, and I knew I wanted to come home to Minnesota, as this is where I grew up. And Tom Hedges was the administrator at the time. I was his 39th intern. He had quite the legacy of internships, which I will forever be grateful for. And then the story is history from there. I was able to work my way up within the organization, serving as the assistant city administrator for about 12 years in between there, before taking on the city administrator role last year.
Well, again, congratulations.
Thank you.
And I understand that you have a title, like you are a Credentialed Manager?
Correct.
Could you tell us a little bit about what that entails and why it's important for someone in the role that you have to have that kind of background?
Sure. In city administration and city management, we're very proud of the code of ethics that we follow. That's through the International City and County Managers Association, so ICMA. So ICMA has a program to credential managers to make sure we're getting, continuing education credits, making sure we're looking at the code of ethics each year, following it. So it's a pretty rigorous process, 40 to 60 hours a year of making sure we're continuing our education and betterment in order to do well in the profession.
Is that a requirement, or is that something that a person who has a position like yours could opt to do or not do?
Yeah, it's not a requirement. Not every city administrator is an ICMA member. Sometimes it's dependent on the size of the community. So we're fortunate here in Eagan to have that opportunity to be an ICMA member, which then allows me to opt into the program.
And you're not the only person in your family who's in city management either, I understand.
That is correct. My 4 daughters get to hear very interesting dinner table conversations, as my husband Justin is the city administrator in Lakeville.
And so do you think your children are developing an interest in following the career paths of their parents?
Yet to be determined. I think our oldest definitely has an interest in management of some capacity, but I think they're quickly learning it's a very gray world. If you're a black and white thinker, it can be a little bit tricky sometimes, but I do appreciate the questions I get because I think they have a great understanding of the service element of the profession, and I hope they follow in the footsteps in some way in service.
Well, I would suspect that having that commonality in your family kind of makes for a closer relationship maybe than some others who have entirely different kinds of roles in their careers.
I'm incredibly grateful for Justin's support because he can also be a colleague at times to bounce ideas off of because I know he understands issues. And we try to turn it off by about 6, 7 o'clock at night, so we don't always talk about city work, but it is really helpful to have that extra set of eyes and ears.
Well, let's get to the city of Eagan and talk a little bit about that. I know that there are a lot of things going on in the city. Was just addressed by the mayor at the State of the City address a few days ago. But let's start out by sharing with our viewers what's so special about the city of Eagan for Dianne Miller.
Oh, thank you. I love that question. I find that it's a lot like what our mayor spoke about yesterday. It's that connectivity of our community. We see it all the time. You can host an event and hundreds, thousands of people come together because they're looking for that opportunity to connect with one another. It's been one of the great things I've been able to see over the past year as we come out of the pandemic in particular. So I love the connectivity. It's wonderful to see our natural spaces, parks. The pandemic reminded us how important those spaces are to our residents, and that popularity has continued into the year. So many things to be proud of. And lastly, of course, our schools. It's not a city service, but it's so important and such an important collaboration and partnership because the strength of our city is so dependent on the strength of our schools.
And so much of that has to do with the position and the leadership that the elected officials, the mayor and the city council do, and the efforts of the management team that you have for the city. So working together, you're able to accomplish so many more things that are so important to the communities. What are some of the things that you are most proud of in your tenure as assistant city manager or administrator, and now as the full administrator?
Yeah, I think going back to 2016 is when we did our Eagan Forward initiative, and that was community visioning where we went out into the community and we asked people, what do you want for Eagan 40 years from now? So don't think about yourself, think about your children, your grandchildren, and that really was a launching point for us in terms of being engaged outwardly in the community. And since then, a lot of the messaging has been, we want Eagan to be this place where everybody can thrive. That's led to our initiatives over the past year, such as our sustainability focus and our race equity focus. I'm really proud of my role that I get to have and the team gets to have in those issues.
Yeah, I want to talk with you a little bit about both of those issues, sustainability and the diversity inclusion. But let's size up Eagan before we talk
absolutely.
about those. Like, what's the population from the latest census about Eagan? How many employees does the city have? What's your operating budget? Could you share some of those statistics with us?
Sure. Our population is just under 70,000. We're now the 11th largest community in the state. We actually were passed by Lakeville. Darn it. That's okay. We'll forgive them. We have about just over 68,000 people here in Eagan. We have a full-time staff capacity of 300 full-time employees, but we also hire about 300 to 400 seasonal employees each year, and this is our seasonal hiring time. So for those watching who have people interested in being a lifeguard or working in our parks, we're always looking for really good people to serve in those seasonal part-time roles.
Okay, viewers, if you are looking for a part-time opportunity this summer, City of Eagan is a great source.
cityofeagan.com, go to jobs. They're all listed there. And then the last question was budget. We have a general fund operating budget of $48 million.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
But the success of Eagan is proof that it's well spent and well invested for the benefit of the community.
Well, thank you.
With that as a background, let's talk a little bit about a couple of very significant initiatives, I think, that the City Council and City Management has elected to pursue. As the Mayor addressed them in his State of the City address, diversity and inclusion and sustainability. So let's talk about each of those, if you will, a little bit. In each case, what's the aim, what's the objective of the initiative, and what would some of the efforts be that the city is going to pursue to achieve those objectives?
Well, I spoke earlier about Eagan being a place where everyone can thrive, and I think that really touches on both sustainability and race equity. And we're focusing this year primarily on race equity as opposed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we think it's really important to be specific that we have effort to go on race equity. So that's been our focus. We've been working with the Center for Economic Inclusion in a consulting relationship, and they're a well-known entity in our region, and they focus primarily on the economics of race and race equity and inclusion. And so over the past year, we've been looking first internally within the city, because we recognize we really need to look at our own policies, practices, how we hire. We need to kind of get our own shop in order before we go out in the community and start addressing how we can improve race equity in the community. Now, are we making efforts in the community? Absolutely, but we have really taken an intentional look internally. So our staff has been in numerous workshops. We're looking particularly at how we recruit, how we hire, and how we retain. So some of the statistics that our mayor spoke to yesterday, we as a city staff last year, we were at 94% of our working population was white. That does not match up with the demographics of our community, where nearly 1 in 3 people are people of color. So we knew we had work to do, because we want our staff to better represent the community. So over these past years, we've been making intentional efforts with some assistance from Center for Economic Inclusion to guide us. Where are some ways that we can recruit better, differently? And we've seen improvement. We're down, now we are at 90% white, 10% people of color in our staff, 4% increase in 1 year. It doesn't sound like much, but you have to keep in mind, we only have so many vacancies in a given year to do this. So it's, we're proud of the changes that we're making in our practices, and it's equally important that not only are we getting qualified people of color to work with us, but what is the culture in our organization to make sure that everyone is feeling welcomed and stays with the city.
Well, I think you've identified an opportunity and a need there. What do you see as some of the major challenges that you're going to be dealing with as you work towards this goal of improving the level of inclusivity within your working staff?
Specific to the workplace and to the city, I think our challenge is just hiring challenges in general. It's incredibly difficult to hire police officers. You see, it's very difficult to hire utility workers because some of the certification programs are no longer in existence that once were in different schools. So it's hard to find a pool in general, let alone as we work on this effort to increase our diversity. You have to have a pool there. So we not only need to look at our own hiring practices, but how can we make sure we have a pipeline for so many of these jobs? And that may mean getting into our schools, at various trade schools. So we have work to do there. It's not just in the microcosm of the city of Eagan.
Well, there's work to be done, but it sounds like the city and the city council and management is making a commitment to work in that direction. The other initiative was sustainability. Can you tell us a little bit about what's the objective there, what's the need, and how you plan on approaching achieving those objectives?
Sure. So we have a very active Energy and Environment Commission here at the city. It's been in place for quite some time, probably about 10 years now. So Eagan's always had a large focus on our natural environment. We have 60 parks in Eagan, thousands of acres of open space. It's one of the crowning jewels of Eagan, we're told frequently, is our green space. And so when we survey our residents each year or every other year through the National Citizen Survey, we found this past survey that 97% of Eagan residents rank the natural environment as a priority. And to put that in context, that's the same level of importance that our residents give to public safety and the economy. And we've been going around doing these road shows with our departments, and I just think that statistic really jumps out, that 97% list the natural environment as a priority. And they go further. We have 96% recycling. We have over 80% who are taking active measures to conserve water. So it's a value to this community. And because of that value, we want to continue making progress as a city. So one of the big initiatives that we'll be kicking off here this year in 2023 is, for the first time, the City of Eagan will collect franchise fees. That will be a small fee for residents and businesses on electric and gas. So it will be $1.85 per month. That will be on a residential bill, and anywhere from $10 to $20 on a commercial bill for electric and gas. All of those funds will go towards our sustainability program. So it will allow us to hire a professional, have the expertise that we don't currently have in a sustainability coordinator, and it will start growing a fund that will allow us to do sustainability measures within the community. So we're really excited about where the program's heading.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit, two things about that. One, when does these franchise fees go into effect?
This summer.
This summer.
So communication will be going out from all of the utilities in the coming months.
And all of the residents as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And I think you said, but I want to emphasize it, that the fees collected from this new tax will be dedicated or earmarked to specific use or purpose within the city budget.
Correct. It will be specifically for sustainability projects and to fund the position.
So what are some of those projects that you already have plans to implement, or maybe you already have them in effect?
We've done a lot to date. We purposely have not come up with the exact plan of the specific projects because we want to bring in the sustainability coordinator to weigh in as opposed to telling them what they should do, because that's the whole point. We don't quite know, and so we want to bring in that expertise. The staff with the City Council has been setting the vision and the goals for the program, recognizing natural environment being one of the main focuses. But it goes beyond the natural environment because sustainability is also, in my mind, a mindset. I mean, we want to be financially sustainable. What we're building should last. We're using our systems through asset management to look at all of our infrastructure to say how long can we make this infrastructure last, how long can we make it last longer, to have fiscal savings as well. And we're certainly having to adopt and adjust to changing climate. So this winter is a perfect example. We've never seen a freeze-thaw cycle like this, and that has impacts on our equipment. If you think about a plow with a metal plow in front, it used to be clearing snow. Well, now we're constantly looking at and thinking about the ice, and the ice can damage equipment. And so it's changing how we operate. Likewise with our storm ponds, when we're seeing these rainfalls that are 100-year rainfalls that in theory should happen once every 100 years, well, they're happening every few years now. So we need to make sure that not only the ponds, but the pipes underground can accommodate that level of water.
So when we were talking earlier about some of the things that make you so proud of Eagan, I mean, you had a really great report. There is so much that's beneficial for the citizens here in our city. So this sustainability initiative, this effort, it sounds like it's a little bit more of getting ahead of the curve than trying to do a lot of catch-up work. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. We've framed it as we want, much like we did with the Eagan Forward, where we asked people to be thinking about future generations. We're doing that with sustainability. We're saying we want to make sure that our future residents can enjoy Eagan the way that we get to enjoy Eagan now. So we're taking very much a futuristic point of view.
Well, how much growth opportunity for residential and commercial business here in the city? Is there still a lot of space and opportunity for growth in those areas?
We don't have a lot of raw land available in Eagan, but I'm always amazed at the infill development that comes. You know, you'll see 5, 6 homes in a certain area on a subdivided lot, or you'll see commercial turnover and new business come in. Certainly, we are one of our major issues for the year is watching all of these large commercial properties, like the one we're sitting in today in the studio. Thomson Reuters, Delta Unisys, perhaps Blue Cross Blue Shield. We don't know anything for certain. We just know that the office climate has changed since the pandemic, and that could have a big impact on our tax base, depending on what happens to those facilities.
Yeah. So how does what's the budgeting process? You talked earlier about a $40 billion, $42 billion annual operating budget.
48 million.
48 million.
Billion would be a
billion,
dream.
Sorry,
no, sorry, taxpayer residents, we will not do that to you.
let's correct that. 48 million. So how does the budgeting process work?
Sure.
For the city?
We're on a biannual budget, so we do 2-year budget cycle where we do operating budget 1 year and then we focus on capital budgets the year after, so it's a cycle. We're just kicking off our budget process right now. Each department will prepare their budget. We have numerous check-ins with the City Council, June and August, and then the final adoption of the budget doesn't happen until December of each year.
So a lot of work goes into that.
A lot of work and a lot of engagement. You'll see a lot of engagement through whether it's newsletters, social media. We're always looking for input from our community.
Have there been any major shifts from one year to the next about the categories of the budget that have grown significantly?
No, I would say primarily public safety is a large driver of local government budgets. Typically, we're very personnel driven. So 80% of our city budget is people because we're in the service business. So usually, public safety is our highest driver for personnel costs.
Yeah, it was very nice to see the mayor recognize the police department and the fire department here in the city of Eagan at his State of the City address. A really great dedicated teams in both of those departments, and they serve the communities very well. So
Yes.
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. When you think about the challenges that you have experienced or that you've seen other city administrators work through, what are some of the biggest challenges in a leadership role like that?
You know, community challenges, certainly, like we talked about, is I think the office market is a big one for us right now. You know, internally, and a challenge for city administrators, and I have to imagine leaders across business world right now, is just coming out of the pandemic and how the workforce has changed, expectations of how work happens has changed, and needing to find a balance there. You know, we have a lot of frontline staff that aren't working remotely, a police officer, a firefighter, a street maintenance, you know, those are jobs that just don't allow for that. That can create difficulty because we have other jobs that do allow for some remote work. And I imagine that's the same challenge going on in many organizations right now, but certainly a newer challenge that we're addressing these past few years.
Well, so far, you have addressed the challenges that the city has experienced in the past, addressed them very well.
Oh, thank you.
I think there are a lot of ways to measure the success or the livability of a community, of a city, and I think Eagan measures up in the top quartile, percentile, in all of those categories. Do you know offhand some of them that Eagan rates very high in compared to other communities of this size?
I know that we do our National Citizen Survey, and then the National Citizen Survey staff come and present each year. Our communications department presents those findings, and we typically rate extremely highly in overall satisfaction of where you live. 98% satisfaction, oftentimes 96 to 98%, extremely high. That's unusual. We are very much in the top tier. I spoke earlier about the emphasis on natural environment and water quality and air quality. Those environmental factors also are very important to Eagan, as are the parks. Our parks get really highly rated and clearly are something that's valued in the community, so we're proud of those.
Anything new in the parks program that's going to be introduced when the parks open this season?
Oh, well, we have a lot of effort underway right now as we look ahead to our park facilities. So we have some studies underway looking at how the future for the community center in terms of the services to be offered there coming out of a pandemic, for example. So that study is underway right now. We are looking at improvements to the art house as well as the new Goat Hill refrigerated ice rink, looking at putting a cover and new warming house at those facilities. So those are large park capital projects that we hope to be coming down the line here.
Well, those are some pretty exciting things
They are,
that you have in the works. So will all of those be implemented within the next year?
Not within the next calendar year. We have to phase them just from even a staffing standpoint from construction and planning. So the art house, and we'll have to have Andrew Pimentel on, our Park and Rec director, but the art house and followed by Goat Hill, those are the first two in terms of a construction phasing. So you can expect changes at those facilities first. When
you're not administering city responsibilities and activities, what are some of the things that you do outside of those responsibilities, Dianne?
I appreciate that. Well, I have 4 kids at home who are all very active in sports. So all 4 are traveling soccer players and track. We have a daughter who's on the speech team at Eagan High School, so looking forward to watching her finish up the speech season. And this time of year, both my husband and I, having gone to the University of Kansas, will be yelling Rock Chalk Jayhawk at March Madness a lot. So we're big college basketball fans and sports fans.
Well, it is March Madness, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I know you're the past president of the Kickstart Rotary Club here in Eagan. What did you like about that leadership role that you had with that great organization.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so proud to be a Rotarian. I can't say enough good things about that organization. I encourage others to look into it. It's always a good opportunity to get to lead an organization because you get to hear from members in a different way. There's just a different level of engagement. I've certainly learned more not only about our local club foundation, which is the funding mechanism for many nonprofits and local organizations, but also big R Rotary and what Rotary does across the world. It was a great opportunity to learn.
The international role.
Correct.
Yeah. Have you been to any of the international?
I haven't. I would like to. I'd like to soon. I get kids a little bit older, and one of these days I hope to get to one of those.
Well, with your involvement with Rotary, with your family, with your alma mater, what are some of the things that you've learned or experienced in those arenas, maybe that you've been able to leverage as the leader of the team here at Eagan?
Oh gosh, good question. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is one of the benefits of being in an organization like the University of Kansas is the network that comes along with it. So, you know, not only being able to reach out to a peer when you have a question in large communities, we call it CUSAMATs. It's going to test me. Kansas University City Managers and Trainees is what that stands for, but that's the name of the network. Wow. And so if there is any issue, I know I'm a phone call away from getting assistance and collaborating, which is super helpful. Our new assistant city administrator, Sarah, happens to be a University of Kansas alum as well. Wow. And so again, those connections really help, and we got a wonderful, wonderful candidate in Sarah because of those connections.
Well, speaking of connection, if our viewers want to connect more, or maybe for the first time with the city, with respect to learning about some of the services that the city offers, learning about the recreational opportunities in the parks program, opportunities for employment, how do they connect to the city? How do they connect with the city?
Just a lot of options. You know, first, certainly for just straight information, the website that's your #1 resource. You can find all you need to know on our city website, including phone numbers if you have follow-up questions. It's where jobs are posted. I encourage everyone to read the newsletter that comes out. That's a great snapshot. Every other month we get a newsletter out to residents, really a snapshot of what's going on in the community. And then coming to events like Market Fest, our farmers market on Wednesday nights. We have the Inside Market Fest on Wednesday nights in the winter, and then we move outside here come spring at the community center, and there's often a lot of connection opportunities with the city at that event as well.
So connecting with the city is the way to get involved with contributing back to the community in a sense. And so we would encourage any of our viewers here in the Eagan area who are interested in doing that to connect with the city. Like you said, you can go to the website, or you can Google up a phone number to call one of the departments and find out what's available there. As you look forward to this coming year, what's the #1 thing you want to get accomplished in your role as the city administrator for Eagan?
Wow. Really the #1, I love the efforts like sustainability and REI, but fundamentally we need to provide our core services in the best way we can. That's why we're there. So we need to make sure that a police officer arrives when you need, a firefighter arrives, that our streets are plowed, that you have water in the morning. Those core services that sometimes we can take for granted because we're just so used to getting them at a high level. That's our #1 job as a city, is making sure that residents can take it for granted, because that means we're doing our job.
Well, I think the evidence is that you are doing a great job in all of those areas. There's such a commitment and such a loyalty to the community, to the city, that you and your staff exude all of the time. And so we really appreciate that and wish you continued success in this leadership role as the administrator for the city of Eagan.
Well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate the opportunity to tell our story.
And you've told it very well. So thank you, Dianne. Our guest on Access to Democracy has been Dianne Miller, who's the city administrator for Eagan. Dianne, thank you again, and good luck.
Thank you.